Welcome back, 2 p.m. with the Trigger, back once again on a very, very special week because July is all about freedom from the fear of public speaking. And I did not make that up, by the way. That's an official thing, but I'm happy to jump on this and share with you all week long, actually all month long. But this particular week, we have a whole lineup of all-stars, experts, actors, professionals, coaches that are sharing the insights on the different ways that we sometimes fear public speaking. We all have these issues. We all have these areas that we're just not as comfortable as we could be. Today, we get to continue that conversation. I hope you had a great 4th of July. I hope you had a great time with friends and families, and you still have all 10 fingers and 10 toes as we get into another great conversation here today. Today is going to be about that fear of being too vulnerable. We've all experienced it. We've all had this thing that we get telling a story. We realize we're sharing about our family, sharing about our past. And sometimes it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable of, am I oversharing? Is it too much? And today we have a great expert in this area. Hilary Blair is my guest today. She's a National Speakers Association fellow speaker. She helps leaders learn about communication and authentic presence skills, which is so important these days. And she's a voiceover artist talent as well. So Hilary, without any more delay, let's get her on camera here. Good to see you.
Hey. Hello. I have all my fingers. I'm ready to go.
Did you have a good 4th?
Yes. Beautiful. Up in the mountains. I live in Colorado. I was hiking. It was with friends. It was beautiful.
And that's how it should be in Colorado. As someone who's lived there, that's exactly how you need to spend your 4th of July.
You bet.
Well, so vulnerability, communication, it's all wrapped up. We've all experienced it. So what's your first thoughts when you hear this idea of the fear of vulnerability? Where do you go with that?
Immediately, I go to our body's instinct to hold our breath. And when we hold our breath, which is our body trying to protect us because we're, as you mentioned, we're oversharing, we're being too much, we're like, our body holds our breath. And then a number of things happen. And two that we want to talk about is all of a sudden your breath is held and then you're kind of squeezing your voice and then you have this weird voice coming out and then you're like, I don't know who this is. And then I'm supposed to be authentic. Who do I sound like? So what happens is our body is all about protecting us. That's what it wants to do. So if our head goes, we're being vulnerable, we're oversharing, our body goes, I can take care of that, and cuts off our breath. That's the first thing it does, right? Goes into fight, flight, freeze, faint, all of that.
Well, and you're absolutely right, because our body will jump in.
Oh, totally.
And it will start shutting down because the vulnerability now is, I'm vulnerable emotionally, mentally, physically. I mean, everything. Your body now is telling you you're too vulnerable.
Too much.
Shut down, shut down, shut down.
Yeah. So two things I suggest for all of us to do. One is going to feel really counterintuitive to everything you've been taught. I'm going to ask you, when you realize that you're holding your breath, to exhale. It's totally counter to what you've been taught, what I've been taught. Everyone's like, take a deep breath. When we are told to take a deep breath, it usually comes pretty shallow. We're like, we raise our shoulders, it comes in tight. And also, it's not our natural instinct. Our natural instinct when we're nervous is to go, right? Blow out air. I mean, you can't do that, right? Like you're in the middle of a talk and you're like, hold a minute, right? That might be a little overexposed. We're back to vulnerable again. Mm-hmm. So I have a number of ways to disguise it with clients and colleagues that I work with for sure. But the main thing is figure out how to exhale. So then you're getting the CO2 out and you're letting the oxygen in. And when you exhale, it also tends to come, when you think about it, it comes in more deeper in your lungs. When we inhale, we tend to take a shallow breath. When we exhale first, gets back to our natural body rhythm, our breath tends to come in lower because we're on a vacuum instead of overriding the vacuum and we're going and allowing the air back in.
Well, so and a lot of people, and a lot of people don't realize how much speaking is physicality of body, open airways, freedom to express. But sometimes we want to do that long, quick sentence. We start rambling going through. Squeeze. And somewhere in there, we got to breathe.
Totally, we're squeezing it in. Yes. And we speak on the exhale. So as long as we're actually allowing the breath to flow, that's our exhale. And then we have to allow a moment. I'm a voice coach, right? So I'm going to do vocal folds with my hands. We're speaking, our vocal folds are flying along, right? And then you have to let them open to let the breath in. So that is really important. So that's the very physiological element, and we can go off on so many
Mhm.
directions, so many different directions. The second one is that reframe vulnerability to availability. I'm an actor, been training actors, moved into working with business professionals about 20 years ago. So these actor things, these techniques and the discipline of the performer come in. Vulnerable is easy to say when you're working on your own self-growth and being vulnerable. And vulnerable is great if I'm an actor and I want to be vulnerable in a scene and I'm working on or singing a song and there's a fourth wall. Like that vulnerability has a container.
Mhm.
Vulnerability when we are in relationship with someone in a business setting or a speaking setting may not be the right thing, actually. Vulnerable can be it can be a lot going on. Available allows you to set your own boundaries. So I'm going to decide how much of me is available. It's just words, but words create worlds, right? It's only
Yes.
words. And that idea of instead of being vulnerable, I'm choosing how much is available. It tends to allow me to relax into my beingness, connect to my breath, and share my message. So exhale and reframe vulnerable as available are two really helpful tools that I've been sharing with folks and myself. I'm a big breath holder.
You're big. Well, and there's times when you're in the middle of talk
Right,
and you have a pre-planned illustration, a story,
right.
and you start into it. And sometimes by accident, I mean, you don't want to change the name, you want to protect the identity, you
Right,
want to
right,
do that.
right,
And every so often you actually go blurp
right,
and you give the real name or the real thing out. Your
right.
body tells you,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
way too much, buddy. You crossed the line. Yes. And you clinch up everywhere. What do
Yeah,
you do when that happens? Because now you're fighting.
totally. First, forgive yourself. First, forgive yourself and go, wow, okay, second chances are a big thing in the world. And then I would go right to, all right, so choose a word, choose a phrase that allows the exhale to happen, whether it's
Ooh.
that was an overshare, hold on, let me regroup. You choose, you're choosing some phrase that allows the exhale to happen to get your breath flowing again.
One of the tricks I use, and we talked about
Yeah.
this just the other day, but I usually have either a real glass of water
Oh,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
something on a
Yep.
stand next to me. Sometimes it is totally empty, but I will at least have the prop of dramatic pause.
Yeah.
Whether I ask a question, I'll let my words hang out there. I'll just go
Yeah.
over and take a
Yep.
little sip, and I am resetting.
Total reset. Reset
And
is
people
great.
just think he's being cool, grab a little sip, and he's getting ready to, give us more goodies. Actually, that's a tool for me
Yeah.
to do that breath while I got the cup in my face.
So you have to breathe while you have to hold your breath and then breathe in order to drink. So you are resetting physiologically. There are always these interwoven processes of physiological, emotional, psychological, all of those different things are coming together and they all impact each other. So all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, that was an overshare. And you freeze, your breath freezes because it wants to protect you. You're going to a physical element of to trigger that breath. I'm saying same thing, right? It's like, "Let me get a drink." You could even say that, "I'm gonna get a drink of water."
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
"I'm gonna get a drink." Yes. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
everyone in the room is gonna grab their cup at the same time, 'cause they're gonna
Yep.
join you, and
Yes.
it helps it all. What about that fear? Because as
Yeah.
coaches, you and I have both heard this. I don't use the phrase very often at all. I don't like it. But if you're nervous, think of everyone in the audience as being naked.
Right. Yeah.
Vulnerability is all about feeling that fear of being too naked, too exposed. So I don't like that phrase
Yeah.
because it sets me up for I'm naked up on stage. Everyone knows about me.
Right, and if we're supposed to picture our audience that way or us or all of that, we a couple thoughts came in and they're colliding in my head, so let me sort through them. So one is that there is a sense of us being exposed, right? The reason naked there can be great elements of that because there's real exposure and sharing and openness. There's also a cultural element in our world of naked has a whole other thing, and
Yeah.
then it so many things come barreling into our head with that. So if we can say sharing, maybe that sense of instead of, oh, I'm naked and that thing, it's just simply I'm sharing. What I hope to guide people to do is to look at your audience and think about them, what they need. When we get caught off and when we often hold our breath is when we've started thinking about ourselves again. It becomes about us. Any
Yes.
communication is about relationship. So I need to be aware of you. I need to be focused on you. If I'm only about me right now, I'm going to look at my box where I am and where my camera is and all of that. If I'm only about, this idea of how am I showing up, what's that relationship thing, I get all caught up in that instead of simply focusing on you and trusting the energy between us and the relationship by looking at the camera in this manufactured virtual environment, right? It's
Yeah.
counterintuitive for me to look at a camera instead of looking at you. I'm going to go here. And
Yes.
what's interesting is when we're feeling vulnerable, we start looking there, we start shutting down. I talk about the difference between self aware and self conscious. When I am self aware, I'm in relationship with you, I'm looking at the camera, I'm available as I want to be, sharing what I want, understanding my boundaries. If I think that I have overstepped a boundary, it becomes all about me. Self conscious, boom, wall goes up. I become focused on me. I lose my connection to you. And if I'm sharing, if I'm talking about voice and vulnerability and how do I show up as a speaker, I have to be thinking about the people who are listening. I have to be talking to you. I have to be about that relationship. And yeah, that's what yeah. So what are your
No, no.
thoughts
I
there?
mean
I could go
that
on. Yeah.
that's perfect because that's where people do inhale and they hold it in forever because now I'm really intimate with you on stage, and we both know from experience on stage, even through the camera
This,
lens now,
yep.
you can get really intimate with people. You can break the glass, which is what
Yeah.
we want to do. But
Yes.
then once you break it, sometimes you realize, wow, we're really in deep now.
Yeah.
And you may not be ready for it, but it's also a sweet spot to be when you get there. That's the good vulnerability.
I love that. I do I like that a concept. You just said good vulnerability.
Yeah.
So many concepts we have out there. We have a dark and a light, or a negative and a positive, or a good and a bad, right? And vulnerability can be in that realm for sure. I love that idea that you just shared there. And I think that's why that sense of vulnerability and connecting for relationship, I can be available and allow that. And the reason I go with availability, and I'm a big Brene Brown fan and expressing and sharing vulnerability, the
Mhm.
reason I go for the term availability is that we're not all the same. We come with all different factors about ourselves and what we're going to share and who we're talking to. And available allows me to share what works in my relationship with you. Even my box right now. I'm in a box, right? And I am what's available is what's here. I don't
Yeah.
have to show you and be vulnerable about what's all around me, right? My heart, I'm going to share what needs to be available in my journey of public speaking and sharing with you. I don't have to do that over vulnerable idea. And I don't even like the over vulnerable because vulnerability is about human connection, right? That's that idea of relationship. And I'm big. That's what I say. Presence is a relationship. When we're having
Yes.
conversations, it's about dialogue versus monologue, all of those ideas. What I have learned in my working with folks is that availability allows the people who feel like they have different elements of themselves to share more freely because they realize that they are setting the boundaries on it. Vulnerable tends to put sometimes the boundaries in someone else's hands. Oh, that's what vulnerable means. I need to share everything.
Right.
Available puts it back in mine, and I get to share what works for us and yeah. Ah,
We get to craft the story, the narrative, and take them on that journey. I mean,
yeah.
Jan's got a great comment here about
Yeah.
vulnerability. It is a human connection.
Yes. Yes.
But you got to be comfortable in doing it. I mean, I've shared stories about my daughters. There's some times, and again, I highly recommend this for every coach, every
Yeah.
speaker. When it comes to family stories, you get clearance before you do it. And
Oh,
I've
yeah, yeah,
crossed the
yeah.
line a couple of times. I totally admit I've done it by accident because I'm
Sure.
in the moment, and all of a sudden I get the perfect story. And I
Yeah.
put it out there. But that's where the vulnerability comes in. It's not just you; it's your children, it's a
Yeah.
coworker. So get clearance, and sometimes we have the right to embellish our stories, change the name to protect the innocent, things like
Totally.
that. You'll still get the same point across.
Yeah.
But again, you're back to controlling the narrative now, and you can share vulnerability, but still maintain control.
Yes. Yes, and that idea of what you just shared is that idea of vulnerable. You've chosen what's available. You're checking in with your family members on what's available. And by simply shifting that wording, you're still open and connected. Available,
Yes.
I'm here, I'm available, right? This is me. My breath is my physiological connection along with my eye contact. And eye contact, we all have a slightly different creep factor, so we have to find our own creep factor for that. How much eye contact can we make? Some of us are like, "Hey," and we're, like, looking right into people's souls, right? And sometimes
Yes.
we're like, "Woo, wow." And we're comfortable with that much connection and allowing keeping that inviting people into that relationship invites them into that availability, that vulnerability in order to share as well. So if you're on the platform, right? You're
Yeah.
speaking that if you create an openness, keeping your body open and vulnerable, sharing your emotions, being present, being self aware enough to know what's going on with you, being self aware enough to know if you just became self conscious, whether you did just put up a wall, a vulnerable thing, an available thing could be to say, wow, I just hit a really vulnerable place. I just put my wall up. I'm dropping my wall back down. I'm connected to you again. That is a huge self awareness piece is to go, okay, how much am I sharing? I just closed off. Going on that journey with people is so important.
Jan, you're absolutely right. As I see your comment sharing this
Yeah.
now, something like a stroke, something like a liver transplant that I went
Yeah.
through several years ago. When
Yeah.
I share my stutter, those are vulnerable things. But
Yes.
when you frame them up right,
Yes.
you're also giving power to the story. You're
Yeah.
giving power and hope to people. You're using that vulnerability
Yes.
to help others, and that's where the power
Beautiful.
is at.
That's building relationships. So you're making the connection. You're using your vulnerability to connect, to be in relationship. And one of the different things, tell me if you found the triggers, you found that if I'm being vulnerable, I'm in relationship, I am sharing my story, we are more and more connected. I feel my audience, even if they're not involved in the dialogue,
Yes.
right? We feel that conversation happening. And
Well,
that is essential.
and that's what I was going to ask you. There's the
Yeah,
big buzzword right now in our industry. Speakers need to be authentic.
right.
Now, being authentic can lead to the vulnerability, but
Yeah.
being authentic can also be, again, learning how to craft the stories to be authentic, but you still have control. And again, that's the thing as speakers,
Yep.
we have control of this.
What is authentic? How would you define authentic?
To
And
me,
anyone who's
it's,
listening, define authentic. Yeah.
yeah, to me, who I am now is the same guy you're going to see me at Walmart. They're the same personality, the same vibe. I'm going to laugh, I'm going to joke, I'm going to tease. That's authentic trigger. No matter where I go,
Okay.
it's still going to be me. For some people, there is a showmanship, and we both have seen it.
Yep.
Backstage, you're talking to them like they're your best friend, and
Yep.
this thing flips in their brain, and now I'm a stage guy or stage gal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
something different about that.
So I'm gonna separate out two of the things you said because I deep dive in all of this world.
Yes.
So I'm gonna suggest that I'm hoping you show up differently in a variety of different places, still authentically you. So hang on. What I mean by
Mhm.
that is we are multifaceted human beings. So the you that I meet in a store, the you that's here, the you
Mhm.
that's, the me that's here, the me that was hiking, there is an authenticity that's still me. I show up differently because I am multifaceted.
Yep.
I often compare it to clothing. I go swimming in a swimsuit. I go hiking in hiking boots, hiking clothes. I go to a wedding in whatever they put on the invitation, right? So it's still me. There are things, clothing, that I can feel really inauthentic, that are not me, that I'm putting on. It's
Yeah.
why brides have often asked now bridesmaids to choose something in the color of their wedding instead
Mhm.
of the specific dress,
Mhm.
because we're individuals and therefore our bodies are different, we're different, what we connect with. Bridesmaids look so much more authentic, right? When they are in the right color, right, for the wedding, and yet in whatever fits them, whatever their style is, there's an authenticity that shows. So authentic doesn't mean we have to be all the same. People often say, "Oh my gosh, people tease me. They can tell when I'm talking to my mother." I'm like, "Well, that is awesome. I hope that you speak to your mother differently than you speak to me. It doesn't make you inauthentic speaking to me or my mother or to a lost child in the grocery store. Authenticity is connecting to who our core is and how it expresses in multiple situations. So we are multifaceted. I want us to have that ability to show up differently and still be ourselves. If we keep saying that we're only one, then we miss the incredible diversity of our own selves. Now, a different thing that you mentioned, that's one thing, right?
Yep. Yep.
The other thing is being present in the moment and that showmanship voice that we're going to go into. This is a voice that I put out there, right? So
Yes.
now I've put a mask of my voice between you and me. My voice is in front of me and it has a style to it. Could help.
Hmm.
I'm a voiceover actor. Could help. When people hear that, if they've heard another voice, you're like, wait a minute, that's not authentic. We talk about presence in these 4 activators of presence. And when we are in all 4 of them, we are connected and really present with each other. That is often what people mean by authentic. I see you is the first step. I choose the energy with which I'm showing up, not
Hmm.
fakely, just that's who I am. I allow you to see me. And then I receive you seeing me. Even though I'm looking in a camera, I'm receiving you, opening up vulnerable. I am truly present in this moment. I have met some people who
Yeah.
hang out in 2 of them. One is they choose how they're showing up and they allow you to see them. They don't see you and they don't receive you seeing them. They are simply in show mode, which
Hmm.
I am with you
Yes.
doesn't land on me as vulnerable nor authentic. That's
Right.
me. They have life choices. They're choosing to move through the world as they are. We have separated these activators from my training as an actor in order for people to understand what's going on when you're like, "Wait a minute, why do they feel they're here? Why do they feel fake? Or why do they feel like there's a wall?" And that is that one idea that we've had is that is the I've chosen how I'm showing up with this idea, and I am right here, and I'm allowing you to see me, but I'm not seeing you nor receiving you seeing me. I don't know. There you go.
No,
There's
no, and Jan's, supporting you here. Everybody is multifaceted, and again,
totally.
understanding those differences, understanding how to lean
Yeah.
into it, makes you a better speaker. It gets you more confident because you do show up different. Just like knowing your audience.
Yes.
I may
Yes.
give the same talk
Yeah.
with a slightly different style variation because I have to know my audience. I'm still authentic, but I
Totally.
have to adapt so the message lands and has the right impact with them.
Yeah. If I'm gonna speak to preschoolers, I'm gonna speak differently. I'm still really authentic. I taught preschool. You can't do the fake thing. They just walk the other direction if you're being they're the best way to choose whether find out whether you're authentic or not. Talk to little kids, they'll just walk away. But the idea is I would be different. So that fear, if we wrap that fear back in, because I know that is
Yeah.
such a big part of speaking and it comes up a lot. It impacts our physical body and all
Yes.
these things we've been talking about. If we can drop into our body, be embodied, be physically present, and allow our breath to flow. Because the other thing, just so you know, is that when you exhale and get your breath coming in more deeply, you get oxygen into your bloodstream, goes to your brain. So you need oxygen in order to share your brilliant thoughts. So fear shuts you down so that you will run or fall down or fight. And you're gonna be like, "No, I actually just wanna be present," which is
Yeah.
super vulnerable.
Hilary Blair, great to have you with us. By the way, if you want to learn more about Hilary,
Yes.
here's her website coming up right here. Oh, hang on. Yes, we,
Yeah.
we, we
Is
do
it?
have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There it is. So, Hilary, what do they find when they go to this QR code?
Yes. So we are a team, all of us are performers, and we work with business professionals in showing up authentically and using their true selves. Sometimes we hire people for their amazing true selves. And then when they get into their corporate or business setting or speaking setting, they start shaving off those amazing parts of themselves. So we work with individuals and teams to show up authentically, whether you're doing public speaking, whether you're running a team meeting, whether you're pitching a new idea. And I love to talk to people. So please connect website and on LinkedIn. Have conversations. I love to learn new things and have conversations about it and kind of go, what do you think? And talk round and round. I'm fascinated. I only get more curious. I have been doing this for decades. I get more curious instead of less so. So join me on my curious journey.
Hilary Blair, that's perfect to have you here. And again, just so you know, coming up in the
Yeah.
month of August, Rock the Stage Media, Rock the Stage Show will have this amazing lady back again. We're going to
Yes.
talk deeper about the
Yes.
voice acting, about what
Yeah.
to do as a voiceover artist. So
Yeah.
Hilary is going to come on back and go deeper and deeper. Thanks
Yep.
for being with us here today, Hilary.
Thank you. Go Rocket. Everybody, show up.
Hilary Blair, again, we are conquering fears all week long. We all want to be better at how we speak, show up, lead out in so many different ways. And fear of public speaking, as we said way back on Sunday at 2:00, sometimes if we don't conquer this fear, it limits our ability to grow. It limits our upward mobility within our companies or the many dreams you have. All week long, we're going to be back again tomorrow, 2 p.m. live, 2 p.m. Eastern time, with another one of these fears. We're going to help you overcome it with another great guest all the way through Saturday. And don't forget, we're going to do this all month long, every Tuesday and Thursday after that. And if you want to get more coaching, more insights on this, hit that QR code right there, and you can contact me personally, and we'll get a little free consultation. We'll explore what you want, where you're at, where your stuff, what are your fears, and we'll carve out a plan to help you succeed and rock your stage, whatever that is. That's going to do it for today. It's great to have you with us at 2 p.m. live. We'll be back tomorrow, 2 p.m. live with The Trigger, with more helping you find freedom.